live events?
No, and quite honestly, I like the live events much more. Do you find this is more difficult to get yourself? When I'm doing a live event, I get pumped up and excited, and that's part of doing the live event, and that I hope comes across to the audience and it becomes more engaging. When
Yep.
you're talking to a camera and a microphone, I find it much harder to get myself all excited and pumped and my adrenaline going, because usually I'm sitting down, which is part of the problem, I guess.
Yeah.
What do you find?
Yeah, I'm the same way. I mean, I don't mind doing interviews, and I find that I found that a lot of the virtual webinars and training, we've had a lot of conferences who went virtual this year just to kind of keep it going. A lot of them are too long. I gotta say, PMTC did one. That one was a full day. Was it 2-day conference? And I actually listened the whole 2 days, which is unusual. But if it's kind of like, I find like 3 hours, I've got a couple other associations I'm with, and 3-hour meetings on Zoom where you're kind of going through an agenda or something, I find that to be too long and too boring. I can't handle that. I mean, even interviews, I think, 35, maybe an hour or whatever is kind of like the max. So I have been, like I say, I put them on in the background and I'm watching them, but I'm not as engaged as I should be. And I find it kind of, I don't know, I've done quite a few. I've done some presentations this year too. And I find I don't even like the presentations as much. And I've been doing them over Zoom for a while, and they're not as engaging. I would much rather be in person. I find there's more excitement and energy there. I want to know about your big one, though, that you just did. You had something like 400 people registered. Did they all show up? How did that work? I want to know how that worked.
We had, I think it ended up being over 600 registered.
Wow.
Which was really good, because that was a number of different companies, and a number of sponsors that stepped up to sponsor the event. On the Friday, we had 110 or thereabouts show up live. And on the Saturday, we had, I believe it was pushing 140.
Wow.
So, close to 300, just under 300 there in total. My math is terrible, of course. But, and then we are hosting the event. People can watch it, because a lot of the companies that registered for the event said, well, my drivers can't make it those 2 days. And so we are hosting it and allowing them to view it till December the 31st. And anybody that views it and then answers the quiz will get a certificate.
So how do you know if someone has actually got the information? Like they could say they watched it, they could breeze through and just do the questions. I'm sure the questions aren't killer questions unless they're specifically tied to the presentation. So will drivers really retain it? Do you think it's going in? Whereas a lot of times in a live event, this as well as I do, that you get one question that spurs someone else's question, comments, and before you know it, you've got some engagement. And a lot of times that's where you learn. You don't have that in a webinar. So is there a gauge other than the test? Is there a gauge to say that, yes, this went in and it worked?
Well, not on the post event. So on the post event, they've got the Saturday recordings up. And at the end of my recorded presentation, for instance, I answered questions. And at the end of Carrie from CVSA's recorded portion, she answered questions, and she got just a ton of questions.
I bet. Anybody in MTO or CVSA always gets a ton of questions, because the whole world wants to know what they actually